All right, friends, it's another super amazing day. And once again, we're jumping into the charts and the setup. Now, today is going to be super different from what we had yesterday. We're going to talk a lot more. We're going to answer a lot of feedback. So if you do have questions, feedbacks, and the rest of that, you want to start sending them into the Zoom chat right away. Now, first, we're going to start by looking into the market. What has the market been up to so far? It's been a super interesting week, and that we want to start looking at. All right, so let's kickstart with that. Sorry about that. My screen is just acting funny. All right, so first we're going to talk about the market, and then we're going to look at what is our trade doing for those who took the trade yesterday, and if there are new trades that we need to be taking up today. If you're joining for the first time, this is Tafabot live setup, where we show you what are the trades to create your setup within martingale bot. And yesterday we did say that you'll be able to use the setup for both sports and on futures. So first is what is the market doing? What is the market looking like? And yesterday we did talk a lot about how the market is moving and several news that will be happening this month that could really affect the market. We talked about the news of Silvergate. We talked about the news with Binance. We talked about the Fed's news that is going to be happening on 22nd of this month. And on 11th, thereabouts, we also will be witnessing the meat gas issue with the market. So there's so much more that the market is doing this month, and we're trading very, very carefully. And this is also affecting how we do our setup to be super, super secured. Now, in the past 24 hours, there's been a whole lot happening in the market. I'm going to go to market liquidation index, which you can find on my screen, showing us that in the past 24 hours, we have $31 million totally wrecked out of the whole exchange. So on this list of exchange, we have exchange like Binance, Bybit, OKES, Wobi that have been tracked. So we have over $31 million wiped off. People's trades in liquidation due to possibly a lot of risky setup from those users. And we can find most of this liquidation happening in markets like BTC, Ethereum, Mask for those trading that, APT, EOS, which we're also trading, Matic, LTC, FTM, and so many more. Now, within those liquidation, we're going to find a lot of this liquidation. Of course, we're long. Like I said yesterday, the right thing for any trader to do right now in the market, either you're choosing not to trade or you want to sit on a long position. Because the market is too obvious that a lot of person really want to short, that is too obvious, that has higher risks. Like we did analyze the market yesterday, and we're going to look at that again. So a lot of traders also are in long, but a lot of traders are overconfident with their trade. So they're doing like a super large setup. The last 24 hours, the market has not even done, even Bitcoin has not done a 5% move, but we still do find liquidation happening in Bitcoin. People are doing high risk trade, pulling in the 50s because they trust the market should start beeping up really, really fast. And we see that that is still not happening yet. So we have a lot of this long position liquidated, and still some short positions were liquidated from users who also are pulling in a large leverage long, also in the hopes that the market will immediately start dumping, and that also is not happening. So we find if you go to the Bitcoin charts, you're going to find Bitcoin just ranging around the circle, does a week up, does one down, moving with about $200-300 movement. So you just find Bitcoin does $300 upward, $300 downward, and a lot of users are trying to bet high risk trade on those short movement, which is leading to a lot of liquidation. Now, proudly, we do not have a liquidation issue with Tafabot users. I still do have setups with it, setups like Lena over the past couple of days, and it's still super fine and super safe. So it's a super week and super month to be very careful with our setup, which is why yesterday we started using a conservative setup rather than a relaxed setup that we've been having other days. So we see a whole lot of this liquidation happening with a whole lot of traders, and we're going to see more of this happening in the next couple of days. Tomorrow, I do expect the markets to make a large move from tomorrow all tonight. It's been super relaxed. People are still wondering what should they do next, and we can see this liquidation happen with over 15,000 traders trading positions. So I do expect more movement, but which movement the market would decide to take, like we said yesterday, we could see a sharp wick downward and then a super bullish turn. And we do not want to place our trade on just a short term sharp wick downward. Now, there have been a lot of questions that I've also received from several users who are saying, okay, shouldn't we just be making the short right now? Which is the most obvious things, and I did explain yesterday why, as much as that is the obvious thing, it's also not the best option to go for. Now, I've also received report of users who say, okay, I took a trade, possibly new users, but my trade is in red. Yes, of course, your trade is going to be in red. That is what trading is. It's going to show you red and it's going to show you green. For those who are new, red simply means that the trade is going downward, and our setup provides for the trade to go downward because it gives you more entries. So there's nothing to be worried about there. So we're going to see what is the market planning to do, what next should we be expecting. Yesterday, we looked also at the USDT flow, and we said it's still within the money flow and is not breaking out of the zone that we've been for the past weeks, and we still see the market trying to do that. And I did say, if we do break out of the zone, there's a large open zone that the market can trade on without strong resistance, which means the market could also have that long wick dumping down, which is why we created a super setup to cover up the maximum movement for BTC. Now, interesting thing to note is if the market does bounce from this dump, that could be the final dump for the market. That could be the final bottom. So if you are in a short and that final bottom happens, it wouldn't matter how much position you keep putting in, you're going to need to put a lot to get out of that market, because the market will no longer be ranging and it will no longer be dumping. It's just going to be super bullish. So even if in the next couple of days, for those who are already in a position, that our position do not close, but it's accumulating a lot of entries according to a setup, that is still a super good stuff. So we see that money is still ranging also in our zone, in the money flow for USD. People are still not fully cashing out into altcoins or BTC, and we see that over here, although a little bit of money is entering into BTC from yesterday. That's why BTC has been pretty stable, is not shaking, but altcoin is not seeing that money flow yet, making BTC our most secure trade right now. So altcoin is not seeing that flow, and that is pretty obvious that people will prefer to put their money into BTC in such time than altcoin that is much more volatile. So if you do have that BTC setup, that is a good setup you want to keep running. So no money getting into altcoin yet, a little bit of money getting into BTC, but if the money flow doesn't break above the previous high of 44.8% BTC dominance, that is still not good yet. So in our setup yesterday, someone said we can't see your screen. Please let me know if that is correct. I've been sharing my screen since we started this call. Any other user, please confirm that with me Let me know that is correct and we can fix that right away. Let me know if you can see my screen or you can't. Okay, perfect. So the other user who can't, please, I think that is going to be from your side. You could join the Zoom once more, exit and join again. All right, so a lot of the users say, okay, they can see my screen. Perfect. So we have that with BTC over here. This was our setup for BTC, and the setup is pretty static. We have our BTC trade. If you took it yesterday, it hasn't closed at all. It's still there. It hasn't taken any profit, nor had more entries into the market, because the market is just right around this zone, very extremely static, totally not moving at all. So you can still see it's directly still at our zone charts. It's not breaking into the bullish zone, nor into the bearish zone yet, super stable. So if you have the setup running, and your bot has not taken any profits, you're not alone. No profit has been taken in the last 24 hours on BTC. It's still super static. Now, what I do expect is that the market either start going bullish, which is going to be a good thing. We start taking a whole lot of profit, or it goes bearish into our zone and we get more entries into the market. And that is going to be really good stuff. And we still have the same also with Lena. For those like me who are still in the Lena trade, we saw that Lena started having a bounce off the zone over here, which we created previous days. And Lena is back breaking outside that zone. Now, if you did take a Lena setup, your Lena setup was for this zone over here, which is a 32%. If you did take that with us, it simply means at the price of Lena right now, you possibly have 50% of your entry in. I do have 50% of my entry into Lena, and it's still there. So if the price does break forward downward, I'm going to have more entries into Lena, and the trade is still super safe. Then we have EOS also over here, and we find EOS breaking directly into our first bearish zone, and that is super good. So if you're trading EOS, you possibly have about 2 entries into the market, and we do have a lot of entries to cover up for EOS in the maximum zone over here. So if you have the setup, it's super safe and it's super secured. Now, what you could find is that EOS does break downward and you have more entries into the market. Let's say you're trading with $1,000 capital and it puts in like $400 into the market. When EOS does bounce out of the zone, and you're going to be taking a larger profit than you would have, or than the guy who just created a one-time short that keeps taking profits on each entry, that is not going to equate to the profit you're going to take one time from EOS moving into our zone. So that is a pretty good stuff. And that trade is still super secure. Then we also have YFI. If you did take also the YFI trade like I did, you're going to find YFI still super static, just a little bit breaking into our first bearish zone, and that is super good. Now you can tell, despite how much of the field that this month holds, there's so much more. We've not seen like 1 month holding this much field in a long while, and the market is still standing this strong. And that is because the market was supposed already to be bullish before all of this news came, and the market is still trying to hold that bullish zone. So that's something really good. And if it does break downward, we're going to have more entries into the market, and that is still totally fine. Now, I reckon we still do have quite a few users still on the EOS, and we found EOS doing same like Lena, breaking up outside of the zone, and now it is back to the zone that we tracked for EOS over here. Now, once again, if you're on this trade, you should also still be fine up to this point. This, if you're using the same leverage, of course, this is the point where I probably would get worried about EOS. But for now, we don't see that happening. Now, I've seen a lot of users asking, what do I do about EOS? Do I put in more capital into it? If you notice, what we do with the daily live setting is to follow the market movement, is to follow the charts. Now, not just creating a setup for the sake of a setup, but a setup that totally follows the chart. Now, outside our zone over here, there's nothing forward. We're looking onto EOS. So you don't want to say, I want to keep putting in more entries. If you do have more capital, what you can do is to just keep that capital on your exchange. Make sure EOS is not taking further entry, but the capital is there. And your exchange is going to consider the capital you have as a balance when working on that trade. So even if EOS does break outside of our zone, you will not be affected, but you don't want to extend more entries into the market. You just want to keep the entries you have. If you have more capital, let the capital just serve as an extra backup capital into your account, not as an entry into EOS. We do expect the bounce, but if that is not happening yet, you don't want to put more capital into that. You just want to hold it, just like I'm holding the Lena that is also playing the same thing as EOS. So I have Lena over here, and if I show on my exchange, you're going to find the Lena position still open. I set for a $10,000 position size on the 5 years, $50,000 position size, and that is still there. Currently, it's running at about minus 20% of my full capital. So that is totally still fine, and it doesn't affect yet the trade because we still have more entries in to the market. So if you do have questions, feedback, like I said, you want to drop a whole lot of that into the charts. We couldn't finish up a lot of questions yesterday, and today we're going to try to take in a whole lot of those questions. Now, for those who are joining us and didn't take the trade yesterday, like I just showed, all of the trade we took yesterday are still 100% within our zone. Nothing has changed yet. Nobody took profit because the market is still 100% stagnant, which makes all the trade we took yesterday still a valid trade that anyone can take. I'm just going to share that right away in my screen. I did get some questions though about yesterday of people saying how to figure out their stop loss, which I did explain yesterday, but we're just going to look at that once more on how do you figure out your stop loss. So this was our setup for yesterday, and I explained that you want to have a conservative setup until the market is super clear on its direction without all of the field facing the market. You want to have a conservative settings, which simply means that unlike the trade we have with Lena or Zem, for those who are still there, if such kind of scenario that happened with Lena or Zem happened, the bot will not keep you in that trade. It's going to exit that trade for you ASAP. So that's why conservative comes into play. And I said how you determine a conservative stop loss is by the martingale calculator. So we're going to take this, for instance, if you're trading BTC and the price movement is 29. For those who have not taken the setup, I'm leaving this in the screen so you can also take this same setup as they are still valid up to now. So if the BTC average movement is 2 and you're doing this on sports or on a 1S, if BTC does go 29% downward, what this means is you're going to be 2% away from the BTC price. This is one uniqueness about the Tafabot martingale system, different from any other system out there. Using the Tafabot calculator ensures that. So you're going to be 2% away from where the market is. Now, a 2% away is totally nothing, right? It's totally nothing in trading. So for such kind of users, you possibly are not bothered with the conservative system if you are not leveraged. You're not bothered with the conservative. But if you still want to go conservative, on a 1S or on sports, then you're looking at a conservative where your stop loss is at 10%, which becomes a near impossible stuff, because that means Bitcoin, after dumping 29%, will have to dump further down 8%, sorry, plus your average 2%, making it 10. So Bitcoin will need to do thereabout a total of 37% dump, and we don't see that happening anytime soon. If we do go to the BTC chart over here, we're going to find that the maximum BTC zone, which gives BTC at 15,000, is at 29.44%. So if you do have such kind of stop loss, you're going to be having the most secured trade, meaning BTC will need to go like 12, 13,000 for you to ever have a 10% stop loss. Now that's something pretty amazing. But if you are not on 1S or sport, you're on leverage. Leverage does multiply your average movements to your leverage. So let's say, for example, if you did a 5S leverage, that will become 2 multiplied by 5. So at this point where the market is 2% away, is going to imply 10% of your capital, not 10% from the market. You're still 2% from the market, but 10% from your capital. So why I'm explaining this, I still have a lot of chats saying EOS, BTC are in deep. Should we wait, or what should we do? I'm literally explaining what you should do over here. So please, you want to pay attention to what I'm saying, and that totally answers your questions. So if you took this trade, like I said, they are still 100% valid. If you've not, you're still able to take this trade right here. That's why it's on the screen. And I did explain why we're using the conservative once more, and how to determine your stop loss with the conservative. So ideally for me, I did a stop loss of 15% running on BTC 3S yesterday. So if you want to follow same trade like I did, then you can apply the same, but it would not be correct if you're doing, let's say, a 7S or a 10S and you're applying the same 15%. It will not be correct, because what that means is your bot is going to stop your trade even before all your entries are in, which is not what your setup would want. So you want to create a setup that totally follows the recommended settings over here, maximum 5S, and I did go for a 3S. So if you also want to do that, that will be a super amazing leverage system for you. So you want to take the same price movement, average movement, and put into the Tafabot martingale calculator to get your full settings for this. And from that, determine your stop loss on the conservative. Someone is asking, I was advised to also add stop loss on Zembot yesterday, and I did 15 before I knew my trade has closed. That is the problem that I just explained right now. You cannot create that stop loss without considering your leverage and your average price movement. And I did explain that also yesterday with Zem. This is why it's important to follow up this live calls that we do every day. If you don't follow it up, it's always on YouTube and you can watch it over again. I did explain what to do with Zem, not to switch it to conservative if you're already in Zem. And I did show in the charts how well Zem has done and what could happen next up onto this point. And I did say, if you want to put in more capital, it's not more capital into the trade, but it's just a capital to use as a backup for the Zem position. So please, you want to follow up, always do say yeah and not do something different. All right, so that's it right now about the market. If you're still in any of those trades, that is super fine. Someone said, is BTC okay for a 5S? Yes, that is also totally fine. I'm going to explain that right again. If you're doing a BTC 5S, if BTC does go to 29% downward, you're going to be at 2, which is going to be 2 multiplied by 5. So you're going to be 2% away from BTC price, but in your exchange, you're going to be 10% in your capital due to your 5S. So you have to understand that, and that is also totally fine if BTC does go that much. All right, so I'm seeing some view your setup on EOS. Yes, that is totally fine. Someone said this is your setup. That is totally fine. And 5S, perfect. Your setup is totally fine. Like I said again, when you do see your exchange on red, it doesn't mean that your trade is bad. It just means your trade is taking in more entry, and that is what a martingale configuration is for. When you see all of this red over here, and we create a structure to cover up for this red, it simply means if this red does happen, you're still totally fine. That is why we create the setup. So you're totally onboarded. If your setup is on red, like mine is over here, I'm going to show you. So this is my setup over here. This is Lena. My Lena is for $10,000 margin, $50,000 position size. Only 5 is in yet. And this is my Lena deficit. You can see all my trades are in, and they're still totally fine. ZEM has taken in 2 entries. BTC has done the same. EOS has taken in 2 entries also, and they are totally and absolutely fine. So the same trades I take is also what I show over here, and you have nothing to worry if you're following the recommended setting. Someone said, can you explain how to arrive at an adequate stop loss for any leverage use? Okay, I did explain that just now. I said, if you're using a 1S leverage or you're trading spots, whatsoever price movement you're covering and the average movement, you are only going to be losing the average movement. Now, what I mean is, if Bitcoin does 29% dump on you, you are only going to be losing 2%, not 29%. That is the uniqueness of Tafabot. You're only going to be losing 2%. So if your stop loss is 5%, then that is fine. But if you're on leverage, your loss or profit is multiplied by the leverage. So if you're 2% away and you're on a 10S, it simply means your capital is going to be 10% deep, but you're still 2% away. So if you're doing that, you don't want to use a 10% stop loss. What that would mean is immediately all your trades are in, your bot is going to stop, and that's not what you want. So you want to space your stop loss away from where your capital would be, as at the point when the market takes in all of your entries. So for that, if you're doing like a 5S on BTC, and if the market dumps to 29%, you're going to be 10% deficit. You want to allow your trade to breathe, like I did mine. I went for a 15% stop, and that is okay. Okay, someone said, I will take in more trades today. If you already have this trade, there are no further trades. If you don't, these are still the same valid trade. They have not changed. The zones are still the same. Someone said EOS has not entered new trades since that's Friday last week. I do not understand how you mean. If your EOS has not entered into more trade, I would believe that you did update your EOS with these new settings. And if you did, there's nothing else you need to do. If it has not entered any trade, meaning either it has not gone down to the point where a new trade needs to go in. All right. It has not done up to the point where a new trade needs to go in, and there's nothing to worry about. I'll just head right back into the charts over here. Now, I'm still looking at ZEM, and if it does break out of the zone, like I said, you don't want to put more capital into that. If you do have some extra capital and you can hold it up until the market bounce, then that is totally fine. And that also will be a very good idea. If I was in that trade, that's what I'm gonna do. That would be a super good idea. Someone is saying, can I still enter the trade now? 100%. If you've not taken the trade yet, I'm going to leave it right again in your screen. This is our setup for today. It's the same setup as yesterday. Nothing has changed in the market. Hence, we're using the same setup for today. So this is the setup. If you've not taken, I'm going to leave it on the screen, and you want to put that setup right away. I'm going to leave this on the screen while I go through your feedback and answer a lot of questions. For those who have not taken the setup, can start setting up their bots. Someone said, can I change the amount I initially assigned to a trade? For example, as if I assigned $1,000, can I change it to 500? Yes, absolutely, you can do that. You can update your bot to use a totally different amount. But if your bot is already in a trade, it's going to close that trade it's currently in to start the new settings. So yes, you can totally update your bot to use a totally different capital. Someone said his BTC setup is correct, but hasn't picked the trade and it's not showing in the exchange. If you do not have any log, you want to contact the Tafabot support to look at that bot for you. If you do not have any log and you do have a Tafabot gas, that's not an issue. Just reach out to support inside your app on the ticket, and they're going to sort that out for you if there's any issue with your bot. All right. Okay. Someone said, I've changed the leverage for BTC to 5 years. I did update the leverage that you can go up to 5S, but I did go for 3S, like I said, but you can go up to 5S with BTC. Okay. Lena, what should you do if your Lena has already stopped? By stopped, could you explain what you mean? Your trade has closed or it's totally done. If it has closed, you don't want to start it up again. There are no new setup for Lena apart from waiting for the Lena take profit, which is going to happen there about here. So I'm just going to show that again. If you are in a Lena trade, this is around here, you have your take profit. So that is something really amazing. And that is about, I'm just going to show that is about 12% from the market. If all your entries are in, this is where it's going to be your take profit. But if all your entries like mine are not in, then this is not your take profit. It should be definitely lower like mine, probably around this point. And that is, I'm just going to measure, that is 4.2% away from Lena current price. So if Lena does not do 4% from the current price, a lot of us that are on Lena trade will be taking a whole lot of profit from Lena. But that has not happened yet. Like I did explain, money is not moving into altcoin yet. Okay, I'm going to leave the setup right again in your screen while I answer feedbacks and questions. Someone said, I'm already copying the trade. Is participating in this feed, in this trade setup going to affect the trade I'm copying? Will it eat into the capital of the running trade? Now, what you want to note is for the user AAA, what you want to note is if you're copying a trade, let's say the trader you're copying is trading BTC, you cannot set up a new BTC trade. But if the trader is not trading BTC, then definitely you can set up a totally different trade, different from the one running. But you want to ensure you have a separate capital that your setup can cover up, different from the capital that the one you're copying is currently using. I hope that is clear. And then user Eric, you're asking, KuCoin Futures does not have BTC. Yes, in KuCoin, it is not BTC. That is why your bot is not trading. If you're trading KuCoin, KuCoin is not called, BTC is not called BTC in KuCoin. If you go to Tafabot app, I'm going to show you right in my app. So please look at my screen. if you're trading KuCoin and you want to set up your bot for BTC, it's not called BTC on KuCoin. There's a little bit lag over here. It's not called BTC on KuCoin. It's actually called SBT. So in the place where you're searching your markets, where you're searching BTC, for KuCoin users, you want to search SBT. So I'm just going to pull that right into the chart. There's a little bit lag with showing my Tafabot app right now in my screen. So user Eric, I'm going to send that into the chart. For KuCoin, it is called SBT. When you set that, it's going to take your trade for KuCoin. So you don't need to contact support anymore. That's why your trade wasn't going through. You needed to set SBT on KuCoin. All right, this is still on my screen while I go through a lot of the feedback. Someone said I assigned, okay, the same user you assigned $1,000 to EOS initially, you switched it to a $500 setup. It has taken one more entry today, but the trade is still active. Yes, the trade is still going to be active until it does take profits. But now it's no longer using a $1,000 trade. It's using $500 capital size because you had changed the settings, and that is what you wanted, so that is fine. As someone said, is EOS did hit a stop loss, should it go on it? Now, once again, the issue about how to determine your stop loss, which I've explained, I'm still going to explain that again. If you're trading sports, this is EOS, it simply means if EOS goes 34%, you're going to be 3.5% away. Now, in trade, you want to allow your trade to breathe, right? So if you're 3.5% away from the trade, you don't want to say a 3.5% stop loss. Means you're telling the bot, stop my trade at my exact entry. That is not good. So if you're doing that, you want to say, okay, I'm 3.5 away from EOS price. I can have a 6% stop loss. But if you're on leverage on futures, it's going to be 3.5 multiplied by your leverage. So you cannot say, I want to have a 5% stop loss, right? If you're using the recommended setting, let me just make it clear. If you're using the recommended setting over here, meaning that you do not have more than a 5S EOS setup, by the time all of your entries are already into the market, what you're going to have for EOS, if you're using exactly the same setup, no change, no higher leverage, lower leverage is fine, but nothing absolutely higher. If EOS does go to 34%, which it has not done, if we look at EOS, so for you to get stop out, you really did use maybe a 1% stop loss, and that is very funny. You don't want to do that. From our setup with EOS, we're going to see how far EOS has done. This was our setup yesterday with EOS. EOS is right here. Okay, EOS is right here. I'm going to take that away and put that again into price range. This was our setup EOS. EOS has only done 3% from our setup. This is why over here you see EOS has taken the second entry on mine because it has only moved one time. So if you do have a stop loss like 1% on a 5S, that will be absolutely wrong. If you're following the same setup and you're doing a 15S on EOS, you'd want to have a 20 stop loss. If you're lesser than a 5S, you can then have a 15 stop loss like I did. Okay, I'm going to set this back to the screen for the setup while I look through the questions once more. So for the guy who is asking his EOS stopped due to the settings you did, you can start it up again, but please put your conservative settings rightly like I just explained. Now, it's really difficult for me to give you a fixed setting because this is a mass leverage, means you could be using a 1S leverage, another user could be using a 2S leverage, a 3S leverage, which is why I taught you how to calculate the stop loss easily. based on your leverage. But if you're not using leverage at all, then your stop loss can be as much as just 5%. Meaning if EOS goes down to 34%, you'll still just be 3.5% away. That is something very beautiful. Someone says, should I set up spot instead of futures? Yes, spot is super most secured. It does give you lesser profits based on the profit you can only get from your capital as against leverage that allows you to multiply your capital for more profit. But if you want to stay super secured in times like this, then you can set up for sports and still take the tiny bit of profits that sports give. But if you do have more capital, then spot is not a tiny bit of profit, is a lot of profit with your capital. Someone said, please, I'm setting up a new bot for Wi-Fi, $100. Should my stop loss be 15? If you are not going more than a 5S, then that is fine. You can have that stop loss. Someone said, how do I know the price movement and average movement? Is right here in the screen. You can see it over here. We try to state it out for each of the markets that we're setting up. So you directly know that and you don't have to bother going to reanalyze the chart. So these are the setup. And I do explain when I go into the chart how the setup runs. And we have it here already for you to copy. Can you create a setup for Ocean? Okay, someone has been requesting for this. This is one new setup we're going to do. We're not going to post this in the group because we still have this setup running, but we're going to do an Ocean setup, and I'm going to set up Ocean for those who are here and you want to take up an Ocean trade. That's going to be trade outside our setup for today. So let's jump right in. We're going to do Ocean setup, and I'm going to answer a few other questions, and we're going to call it a day. Someone say, if I have $100, what should be my leverage? You can see over here, not more than 5S. It doesn't matter what capital you're using. So you can do a 2S, you can do a 3S, not more than 5. Okay, someone on EOS had to extend. Okay, perfect. Hope I'm fine. Yes, 20. That's what your stop loss should be if you're running a 5S leverage. That's okay. Someone said, I created the setup for Wi-Fi on Friday, and it has just made $13 profit from me. He said, I thought I should have made 25% already. We should be about over $50 already on the Wi-Fi. So if you did take a Wi-Fi setup, then you will notice that your Wi-Fi was only doing the first entry. I guess a lot of users still don't fully understand how martingale work, which is why we're having other trainings that are different from setup. So you want to join in the daily trainings of what is martingale, how does it run, different from when we are giving the setup for martingale to understand how it runs. So if you created the Wi-Fi setup and Wi-Fi was only taking your first profit, your first entry, you're only going to be making the profit of that first entry, right? But if it does have a drawdown like we are having right now, which gives you more entry in, then you're taking profits of your whole capital. So this is why I keep explaining that the guy who says, okay, our setup is for long, but I want to create a setup for short, and he keeps taking the short profit, he's not going to take as much profit as you who created the setup that we just did, covering up for the market drawdown for all the capital. So we're going to be making more profits, and that guy also stands at higher risks if the market does have the expected bounce. Back to the setup screen, and we're going to look at Ocean once more. Okay, someone is asking, could we make an example how to calculate stop loss? I've done that numerous times, but we're going to make a video also on how to make a stop loss. To make that simple, what I'm going to do in our next training is to give what are the stop loss based on this leverage, that leverage. But if you do go above that leverage, then that settings will not be covering for your setup. So from tomorrow's class, I'm going to give what is a stop loss based on this leverage, and it's going to be spelled out expressly for you to follow. Someone said, should I take the EOS setup if the capital had allocated to the 3 setup posted, or should I add new capital? If you are already using a capital for other setup, you don't want to exhaust your capital. And this is one thing I've noticed with some users, and that is not good. You want to create a $100 setup on EOS with $100 and create a $100 setup on YFI with the same $100. That means $200, but you only have $100. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be straining your capital into the setup, and that capital might not cover up for your setup. So you don't want to do that if you've already allocated a capital into the setup. So let's take a look at Ocean very, very fast and find a trade into Ocean before we do call it a day. Now, if you already have your capital into other trades, you don't want to strain your capital into new trades. Okay. So let's jump right into what does Ocean holds. Ocean USDT. Quite another beautiful setup. Now, from what we can see in Ocean, first we want to identify what are the price range running on Ocean. So I'm going to use my price range map. This is the current price of Ocean. So we're going to see if Ocean is deciding to go up. First thing we want to note over here, I'm going to show you right over here. First thing to note, go off. First thing to note with the Ocean setup is Ocean has a large, big bounce. So you've seen Ocean right from December has been progressively going up, meaning after December, there are no major supports that Ocean is standing on. So if you want to create a setup for Ocean, it's going to be a super lengthy setup. So let's jump into it and see what are all the possible zones that Ocean has. So first, let's pull over here. If Ocean decides to drop down, we find a 4-zone ranging at 4% over here. Ocean drop down. Now, if we do pull our charts more to see what has happened in the past, what other zone can we find in Ocean? We find a zone there about here in July that is pretty bad. So if Ocean does find support in that zone, that's where we pull in Ocean here at about 31%. It simply means from this point of Ocean, there's no other setup that can hold Ocean. There's no other previous history zone that Ocean has tested. Now, outside that zone, we then have a final zone with Ocean there about here at 55%. So if you want to take an Ocean setup, you should be ready to cover up for a 55% zone with Ocean. Else, you really don't want to touch Ocean right now. It needs to test a previous support, which you can see there are no previous support outside a 31% and a 55%. Now, what's the difference between Ocean and so many of the trades that we've done? For example, the EOS, we can find EOS has tested previous numerous support. First support over here with EOS at 8%. Then it has done previous support over here as at November, giving EOS at 21%. Now, beyond that, there have been previous support since November, again in June, and this support has been pretty strong with EOS from June last year up to now. So that created our zone for EOS. But as against Ocean, we can find that where Ocean finds support after the current price as of June, we're going to be finding that at 55%. So if you want to do this kind of setup, it's not a setup I want to take. I don't want to cover up a 55% market movement. If the market decides to decline, you're going to find Ocean at $0.16, and that is not good. And for Ocean also, if it decides to go on the upward movement, we have the fourth zone over here at 23%. And then we have one last zone. So there are just two major zones with Ocean if it's going up, because it's testing up a new high that it has not done in a long while. The last time we found such high, it did that in December. And after that, it's ranged over till June. So that's not a super setup that I want to take right now, considering how volatile the market is. I do not want to cover up a 55% market drawdown. Else, if you do want to take an Ocean trade, seeing that Ocean really do not have a whole lot of support or resistance outside the zone, this is quite an empty zone for Ocean, then it will be to create a little bit of shorts in Ocean, just taking in a little bit of profit if the market keeps going down, because Ocean is going to have more dump than any other market that we have reviewed. Then you want to be taking a tiny little bit profit. If the market does bounce back, then you want to close that setup for Ocean. So I won't be creating a setup on this. A 55% drawdown is a super drawdown that is going to strain your capital a lot. So that's basically it with Ocean, not a trade that we want to take. But the user who is asking if you're already in an Ocean trade, it depends on which of the side of Oceans you are. Possibly you are on the long, then you want to create a stop loss. If Ocean does break below this level, that is a dangerous zone for Ocean down up to this point. So Ocean has 14% more to cover. And if it does break this 14% zone, you have a large empty zone for Ocean to cover. And you don't want to keep such a trade open up until this point. So that's going to be pretty it about our setup. I'm going to take one more question. If I'm copying a trade on Ethereum, can I still create a bot on Ethereum with another capital? No, you cannot do that if you are on futures, but you can do that if you're on spot. So if you're on spot, you can create the same Ethereum bots, different capital, but on futures, you cannot do that. You can only have one trade on futures on the same market. But spot, you can have a million trade if you wish. So guys, that's it. Once more, for those who don't know the setup, this is still our setup for today. We're going to review how the setup is doing based on what the market is saying tomorrow. I do expect a market movement to happen today. So I'm looking out for that. It could happen late at night. So we're still watching what will the markets do. All right, guys. Thanks once again. This is going to be it for today, and see you all tomorrow. Yes, the setup video is going to be online just after this call. So you're also going to find this video on the Tafabot YouTube page.